We'll go ahead and get started. Good evening, everybody that's been able to join so far. We'll welcome additional people as they hop on. I'm Kat Pacente, Director of Operations for Momcology, and you are in our new Caregiver Lounge. We're happy you're able to be here with us. We have over 230 registrations so far, and we're very, very excited to see your enthusiasm about this program. Momcology, in mid 2002, we did a survey of our caregiver support community about topics that were of importance to you. We wanted you to help drive this program and to bring meaningful content to you and what matters. The curriculum is wonderful. We are able to be joined by impressive and accomplished pediatric medical and psychosocial support partners through our hospital program called Connections. Our virtual-based programs are always focused on meeting our families wherever they are, providing community interaction, support, information, education, and care. And we're thrilled tonight to be able to welcome to the first lounge Dr. Amy Steele. Amy is the pediatric psychologist and chief of the Division of Pediatric Psychology and Neuropsychology at Levine Children's Hospital in Charlotte, North Carolina. We will go ahead and post her full bio in the chat or in the Q&A, and you can find it there. Just a couple of quick housekeeping items tonight. We will be recording this. The webinar is completely in view-only mode, so get comfortable, grab a cup of coffee or tea, and just be comfy, come as you are. And if you have to step away for a minute here or there, you'll be able to access the video later. There will be opportunities for both polling during the webinar, and all you'll do is just click your answer in the polling box. And we will also have a Q&A later in the session. If you need us during the webinar, please go ahead and type into the Q&A, and any IT issues that we're having, they'll be addressed right away. And then questions we will share with Amy and talk about at the end of the session. With that, I welcome you to our couch, Dr. Steele, and we're happy to have you be our first guest in the Momcology Caregiver Lounge series.
Thank you so much, Kat, and to all of you. I very much appreciate this opportunity to be here for the first session. And I know everybody's kind of rolling in and doing some housekeeping and all of that. So like Kat mentioned, please get comfortable. I can't see you. I kind of wish I was getting a little audience feedback. I kind of thrive on that, but I'm so happy to be here. Like Kat mentioned, I'm a pediatric psychology first and foremost. I've been involved with Connections for years, and I think it's a real honor to be here and to speak to you parents about some really practical strategies on coping and managing stress at really any stage of life. So we can go ahead and get started. I'll need to go ahead and share my slides. So I'm going to do that really quickly. And make sure that even in this digital age that everyone can see my slides and that those are all good. All right. So the very first thing I'd like for us to do is everybody's kind of jumping on. Kat mentioned that there would be a number of opportunities for polls. So I'd really like for everyone to just take a moment with this stoplight analogy and check in with yourself. If you're feeling red, like you're here physically present, but your mind is really elsewhere, select that. Yellow, you're here tonight, you're relatively present, but there's a lot on your mind. Or green, like you are here fully present mentally and physically. And if you'll just take a couple minutes or a second or two and complete this, I think this really helps me get a sense of where we're all starting tonight. It's really come as you are. the fact that you're here is a real opportunity. You're showing up for yourself. You're taking care of yourself really just by being here. You know what? And if you're listening to this and doing laundry and getting kids to bed or cleaning up from dinner, good for you. And you're here. And so, and I'm just honored that you guys are sharing your most valuable time with me tonight and with all of us. So wherever you are, green here and fully present, yellow here and relatively present, or red, all are welcome. And we're wonderfully happy to have you here as a part of this. Okay, I think everybody pretty much has participated. Okay, wonderful. All right. So I'm going to my next slide. There we go. All right. So some objectives tonight, as we talk about practical strategies for stress management, we're going to talk first and foremost about stress and its impact on the brain and body. We all know what stress is. We know how it feels in our own body, but I think it is extraordinarily important to understand our nervous system and the impact that stress has on our mental health, physical health, spiritual health, and well-being overall. So we'll spend a little bit of time getting some background there, and then we're going to talk about wellness components, and I'm going to guide you guys through some experiential things tonight that I hope will feel perhaps restorative or calming or grounding, and at the very least, maybe just expose you to something that you haven't quite done, and maybe some things that you're very familiar with. So we're going to talk about sleep, nutrition, movement, some cognitive components and thinking that go into wellness, and then connection, social and spiritual. So this is your brain and body on stress. Let's start there and talk a bit about that. So stress is an inherent part of life. And in fact, not all stress is bad, right? Stress actually motivates us to perform. If you've ever done athletics or studied for a test, or me getting ready for this presentation, if I wasn't stressed at all and didn't care, then I wouldn't prepare, and that would be, not good. But a healthy level of stress can actually serve us and motivate us. We can, look into something, do some research about it, learn more. So stress is inherent, and also not all stress is bad. And sometimes I feel like stress just is talked about as being all bad. Like I mentioned, a healthy level of stress motivates us to perform and really keep us alert. So stress does impact, though, pretty much every aspect of our life, from interpersonal relationships, our brain, our body, and then our mental health, our thoughts, and our emotions. When we're stressed, these are a number of the consequences that happen in our body that I think are important for us to understand. And I'm sure many of us physiologically have felt these things, right? Our blood pressure rises, our heart rate increases, our breathing becomes more rapid, more shallow. Our digestive system slows down, which can cause a whole host of issues and concerns. Like I mentioned, our heart rate, our pulse rises, just like our blood pressure. And then a really important part, which I'm sure many of us have experienced if we're super stressed and we get through something big, and then we finally get a chance to breathe and relax, that our immune system becomes less effective, right? It decreases. And so then we get sick after we've just had this major stress push to get us through whatever it was that we needed to. And that's a physiologic known fact of something that happens. Our muscles certainly become tense, and then sleep can become quite difficult when we're stressed. So there's this stress brain loop, right? As I mentioned earlier, not all stress certainly is bad. And some stress in the moment can be okay and motivate us to do well. But chronic stress is where we really start to see some negative effects long-term on our overall health. So the basic gist of this, I tend to be a little bit of a science nerd, and I'm a psychologist, so I really like to think about how things impact our brain and where the function is and what we do with it. Not that we have to understand all of that all the time, but I do think it's pretty helpful. So with chronic stress, like I mentioned, you can get inadequate sleep, you can be emotionally distressed, have poor nutrition. Basically, when you're chronically stressed, it increases your cortisol. Some cortisol, okay, good, healthy for us. Lots of cortisol over time not so good. And in fact, can create cellular changes in your brain. And really the area that really is impacted is our hippocampus or hippocampi. So there's actually two of them. The hippocampus is one of my favorites because I always remember that it controls memory. So it's the memories that we are trying to access that we've already laid down in our brain, and then the memories that we're trying to make and hold on to. So if we think about that and we think about being parents and maybe being in the moment and wanting to remember things that are happening with our children, or just remember to, pay our bills or give medicines or whatever we're doing, or remember things at work for a presentation, then if we are chronically stressed, then our memory is going to be more and more impaired. And not only that, our hippocampus can become smaller over time, which means that we are not able to have as good of a memory. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit later about some things that we can do to really overall improve the health of our brain, but that's something to kind of remember. So other things that can happen in your brain with chronic stress exposure can be, decreased attention and focus, as I'm sure we've all known, decreased perception of the things going on around us, have word finding issues. I remember being pregnant, and which also affects your brain, and all the word finding issues that I was having. And I was like, what is happening? I was sleep deprived coming back to work after having the baby and all of that. And so those changes and the impact and the impairment on our brain and our functioning are really significant at times, especially with chronic stress. It can also impair how we learn and certainly our emotional regulation. So let's talk a little bit about the nervous system, and I get pretty excited about this too, but I kind of liked this graphic. So again, important to understand how our nervous system works, how stress impacts our nervous system and our body, and then how we can control aspects of our nervous system to then turn down, like turning down a stereo or turning down volume, really turn down our stress response to be more well or more healthy overall, to be a better parent, person, a partner, etc. So our nervous system essentially transmits signals between the brain and the rest of our body. Our nervous system takes in all the sensations from our outside environment and then sends them up and down these really, really elaborate systems. And so the nervous system activity controls our ability to move, our ability to think, our ability to regulate our emotions, and it just communicates back and forth with our brains. It's a really important system that can be quite complex, but we're going to break it down just a little bit. So often when we talk about stress, people talk about the fight or flight response, right? So we are highly stressed and we're either ready to fight the stressor coming at us, like evolutionarily, this might be the bear or the saber-toothed tiger that might be coming to us, or we're ready to flee and get out of there, or actually freeze. But our nervous system and the way that we can impact our nervous system is so much more complex than that. And our stress response really is so much more complex than that. And so essentially, our nervous system gathers this input from the environment, communicates to the brain, and then either turns on, hey, be more alert, or, oh, situation seems okay, we can calm down, and these sorts of functions may happen. So let's take a real-time example. You're at home, you're about to get ready for bed, you're laying in your bed, the air is pretty cool, you have a great temperature for sleeping, the house is kind of quiet, you're feeling a bit relaxed. All of these sensations are coming in through your nervous system, through your eyes, you're closing your eyes, your ears, you're sensing that things are quiet. Your parasympathetic nervous system is saying, okay, relax. It's almost time for sleep. Let's shut down for the day. Your breathing, your respiration rate becomes a little slower. Your muscles tend to relax. And then all of a sudden, I'm sure this has happened to all of us. You're like, wait a second. Did I hear something? Is something outside? Is that one of the children crying? Hold on, what's going on? And all of a sudden your eyes become more alert. Your heart races a little bit more, right? Your muscles may tense up. You may sit up in bed. Your respirations become different, right? So then your sympathetic nervous system is saying, alert, alert, we think we heard something. And at the end of the day, with all of this, what I want you to remember is that our brain's first and foremost job is to keep us alive. And if we are on high alert all the time, then that means we are constantly scanning our environment, looking for danger and ensuring that we're going to stay alive, because we're going to remember the bad stuff. We're always going to be hypervigilant and aware, and we're going to stay alive. And if that's our brain's primary function, then that means we have to actively control and get the other side of our nervous system that is more calming and slows things down. We need to figure out how to activate that, especially if we are often in a highly stressful situation, which many of us find ourselves in. So brain's job is to keep us alive. We need to figure out how to access and turn on our relaxation response, or our rest and relaxation response, or the parasympathetic nervous system. All right. All right, that might have been a lot for you all, but I'm hoping that we're all still following here since I can't see you. All right, so this is our first, other than the first poll, this is our first experiential part of this. Please grab anything that you can to write with: pencil, paper, crayon, marker, whatever's around, your phone if you have to. And it's easier, I will say, if you're actually writing. And we're gonna do what's called a brain dump activity for maybe a minute and a half. Okay, so I'll give you just a second to find something to scribble on. It can be the back of something, anything that you have. And I'll go ahead and talk through what a brain dump is, and maybe some of you have heard of this. So the brain dump is, the idea is to take 2 minutes and to write down anything and everything that may be on your mind at the moment. Some people like to use shorthand, to draw, to scribble, to cross things out. The whole idea is that you're getting things out of your brain, out of your mind, and onto paper so that you can focus and declutter a little bit of all the constant chatter and running of thoughts that we have in our brain all the time. Some people like lists, some people like other things. So grab a piece of paper, something to write with. I'll give you about a minute and a half because now I've been talking, and just write down anything and everything right now that's on your mind. It could be something you're worried about, thoughts that keep popping up, what you need to do after this, anything that comes up, whatever feels best for you. The key point is that you want to write it and get it down on a piece of paper. I'll look at my watch for just a second and give you guys 1 minute. Okay, so just take a moment and just finish up whatever you were writing, anything and everything that is coming to your mind or that was on your mind or that you're holding there. Go ahead and finish writing that down. And we're going to transition to the next activity. The idea behind brain dump, as I mentioned, is to get things that you may be holding in kind of your working memory, or that part of your memory that is really close to the forefront, that's always kind of up there, noodling around or circling around. Don't forget the milk, whatever it might be, that you get that out and you put it down on paper so that you have more brain space and capability to do perhaps more important work, or a little bit more of a clear mind to then move into whatever activity you're doing next. Some people like to do a brain dump first thing in the morning or right before bed, especially if you have trouble falling off to sleep because you have racing thoughts or other things that might be on your mind. It can be a helpful tool right before bed. They make, really elaborate brain dump journals and prompts and things like that, but really all you need is some sort of paper and a writing utensil. All right, we're on to our next poll. This one I am going to share with you guys, so I will share the results. It's all anonymous, but what we're going to do is just go through how much sleep you get per night. This is an average. I know if you're in a hospital or going through a really stressful time or anything like that, you're not getting much sleep. Or if you have a new baby or a child who, is very ill, or, all kinds of things, then, you may not get that much sleep at that point in time. So just on average, how much sleep are you getting per night? We're going to talk about sleep and why it's so important. And again, no judgment whatsoever, just to kind of see where we're all at. And if we know our starting point, then we can know where we're working with and how we might be able to improve. So awareness of where we are is the best thing to do. So we're almost there, I think. with this, get your answers in. Okay, I think we're good. All right, so let's share the results. Are we sharing? Okay, great. Okay, so the majority of you are getting 6 to 7 hours. All right, excellent. And then the next bits are 5 to 6 hours, 7 to 8 hours. Very few are getting under 5. Excellent, because that's complete sleep deprivation. And then very few of you also getting 8 or more hours. Wonderful. Okay. So let's talk about, I think I just click off of that. Sleep is really vital. Let's talk about why it is. And I have to say that I selected this graphic and then later looked at it and I was like, hey, it's P. Diddy. I didn't know that when I selected it. I just liked it. Okay, so why is sleep so vital? Well, it absolutely affects our immune system greatly, right? So if we think about sleep for a small child or sleep for us as a parent, rates of infection become higher if we are not sleeping so well. We are going back to talking about our nervous system here. We have decreased concentration, memory, lower motivation. Our behavior can become a little bit more erratic. It's harder to think. We may experience more anxiety. Our pain tolerance is lower, and then certainly we are more fatigued because if we are not as well rested, certainly we can become more fatigued. It absolutely impacts our GI system. So if we're thinking about how nutrients are absorbed or how we are digesting, sleep impacts that. Our muscles, right? We can be more tense, or the ability to recover if we worked out or did other things. And then certainly our blood pressure and heart disease is also impacted by sleep. So basically, it's a pretty exhaustive list that sleep impacts every function of our body. How much sleep is enough, right? Because people always ask. So in the toddler years, because again, we're talking to parents here, 11 to 13 hours is good, healthy, or enough sleep for a toddler. That includes their naps. Preschoolers, ages around 3 to 5, 11 to 12 hours. School age kiddos, 9 to 10. Adolescents, 8.5 to 9.5. And if any of you have teenagers, they may want a lot more than that, but and some people want or need more sleep. I'm one of those people. I don't always get it. And then adults need between 7 and 9 hours of sleep. So if we think back, a lot of you were getting around 6 to 7 hours. So maybe on the lower end of what is average for adult sleep, if you feel rested after 6 versus if you're closer to that, 7.5 or 8. So how can we improve restorative sleep? Because at the end of the day, we need to have sleep that actually restores our functioning and all those bodily processes that we talked about earlier, and not just like lay there and toss and turn and things like that. So I think when we're talking to parents, and hopefully you guys can see that. I see a little bit of a view, so hopefully you can read the top of that. But you want to make sure that you get adequate sleep before anticipated sleep loss. So we want to avoid starting with a deficit. So let's take parents who your child has an upcoming admission for chemotherapy. Try to do what you can the weekend before or the couple days before to stock up on, not that you can really stock up on sleep because you can't, but you don't want to go in with a deficit. Now, sometimes that's unavoidable. Someone gets sick, you all of a sudden get admitted and there it goes. Or you have a newborn at home and you're like, well, there's no way I could possibly go in without a deficit. So, but if you can, and you're going into a rough patch, then try to get some adequate sleep before you're going into an anticipated rough period, which can be somewhat helpful and not usually talked about, quite honestly. But there's some good evidence for that out in the literature. You want to make sure that you're going to bed and getting up around the same time each day, if you possibly can. So with children, especially, they'll be like, oh, I just want to sleep till noon on the weekends, or, something else if they're older adolescents, perhaps. Certainly not young children like mine who are up very, very early. But, so going to bed around the same time each night, waking up, and you want to do that within about an hour and a half time frame. So, it doesn't have to be 9 on the dot or 11 and waking up at 6, but around an hour and a half time frame, give or take, on each side is going to just help your circadian rhythm and your biological clock. having a bedtime routine can be really essential. These are some of the things that I like. You can find a ton of them online. With young kids, a visual schedule can be really helpful. Like, these are what we do at night, or these are what we try to do each night. And then with adults, it's also very, very helpful to have a routine. How do we signal and associate for our brain that it is now time to sleep? Are we trying to meditate, or taking a bath, or reading something a little bit, limiting our screen time, whatever it is, drinking a big glass of water, whatever it might be? It's really helpful to have a bedtime routine, even as an adult, because then our brain is really just an association machine. So it links the two things. Oh, she's in bed, the phone went down, now we're going to read a little bit, hopefully, drift off to sleep or listen to quiet music, whatever works for you. This is a really, really, really hard one, even for me. And I know a lot of research about sleep, but try to turn off your screens 1 hour before bed. There's a lot of things out there about everyone scrolling and us finally getting our quiet time, especially as a mom or a parent who's stressed and you're like, I just need to vegetate and stare at something and do something before I go to sleep. But if possible, turn off screens 1 hour before bed. Really, the screen, even if it's on dim, even if it's on dark mode, it wakes up our brain. And so it's working against that biological clock that we have that, like, hey, things are dark, it's time to go to sleep. You also want to, have dim lighting around your house if you can, right before you're going to bed. Use a lamp in your room instead of bright overhead lighting. All of those things can help too. If you can't do an hour, try to do 30 minutes or 20 or even 10, and then gradually work up to it. Setting the bedtime alarm, if you have a phone that has that, or anything else, may cue you to, and or sleeping with your phone kind of out of reach can also be helpful, depending. Just some practical tips. You could always play around with it and see what might work. The bed. So the bed is for sleeping and sex, right? So we want to try to avoid doing all the other things in our bed. Because as I mentioned earlier, if we're watching TV in bed and eating in bed and doing work in bed with my laptop, like I sometimes do, then our brain associates, hey, the bed's just like another place to hang out. It's my second couch. And instead, we want our brain to associate, we go to bed to sleep. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's a little bit more simple to help with sleep. And then the more active that you can be during the day, the better your restful and restorative sleep will be at night. And then this is a hard one too. So you want to try to avoid caffeine, certainly close to bedtime, but really cutting off caffeine around lunchtime. The half-life of caffeine stays in your system pretty long. And so cutting it out around lunchtime is ideal, especially if you're going to bed between 10 and midnight, and certainly earlier. Alcohol, while it may be sedating or calming and relaxing, actually impairs the quality of your sleep. So you might drift off to sleep better with a glass of wine at night, but it does impair the quality of your sleep and may make your sleep not as restorative. So you'd want to limit your alcohol to improve your sleep, or avoid alcohol. And then sugar also can have a negative impact on your life. I sound like Debbie Downer with this slide, I think. All right, so let's transition to nourishment and how we nourish our body through the things that we ingest in order to make us overall more healthy and well, and really help us to manage our stress. All right. So if any of you have ever heard of the blue zones, it's really cool research. A National Geographic fellow and many other people, Dan Buettner is his name, and there's blue zone. I think there might be a blue zone diet and blue zone research and all of these things, but there are basically 5 areas around the world that have the longest living people, or centenarians. And so these are folks that are living well into their hundreds. And so basically these researchers started saying, what are these people doing? How are they living so long? And so these are the places. Loma Linda, California is one of the largest populations of Seventh-day Adventists. And so that's where that is. So what do the blue zones have in common? And then where does the research lie? Because quite honestly, you can look at what the news or a new study might say. And it's really confusing about what to eat. And then you may get this like well-intentioned, but often very odd advice from neighbors, friends, or Facebook or other online things where they're like, oh, do this, for this prevention or anti-cancer diet. And, we could do a whole session on that, but we won't. We'll focus on nourishing our body and staying healthy. So the majority of the data and the research is that you want to eat plants, as many plants as you can. Eating plants improves health overall. It improves longevity. It improves heart and cardiovascular health. Eating more fruits and vegetables improves health. There's really no downside to it. Eating whole foods, foods that look like they came from the earth or are minimally processed. Eating a variety of plants. There are tons of things about our gut and the microbiome. That's certainly not my expertise, but just on a high level, our gut and our microbiome and everything that's happening in our gut impacts all of our other functions in our body, certainly our brain, our stress levels, anxiety, depression. And so the more variety of plants that we eat, fruits and vegetables, we have a healthier gut microbiome, which can be really helpful. And then again, limiting caffeine, alcohol, and sugar from those blue zones with these people who have lived very long was also a data that came out. Okay, so we've been sitting a little bit, and I would like for us to talk about movement. I am going to try this. I don't have any sort of fancy setup, but I'm going to turn off my camera so that I don't make anyone seasick as I walk to another room and set up so that you can see me. We are going to do just a little bit of mindful movement. Here's the thing. If you don't feel like moving at all, A-okay. I'm still wearing my work clothes, so this is not going to be intense at all. It's just a little bit of mindful movement to kind of break up our session and hopefully be grounding and experiential for you. The only thing that you will need is a chair. So if you have a chair nearby, go ahead and grab that. If you don't, and you just have a couch or a chair that's in your living room or anything else, that's fine. Some of the things, or if you even have a wall next to you, just something where you could put a hand on anything. So I'm gonna stop my camera. If you have a chair or you need a break or you need water or anything, grab it, and I'll meet you in just a few seconds. All right. Like I mentioned, guys, I don't have a super fancy setup for you, but hopefully this will invite some authenticity into our mindful movement tonight. And I also didn't get the very cool background because I realized I had to share my mindful movement with you. So, okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back up and I'll try to project my voice. I have a little chair right there, and we're just going to take just a couple of minutes, maybe about 5 to 8 minutes, and just move through a couple of really slow, mindful movements to break up our session. Again, if anything feels uncomfortable, please don't worry about it. Don't do it. I'm going to send an invitation to you to invite you to do this. And if you want to do some of it and not all, it's okay. And remember, I can't see you. So don't worry about it at all. And I'm actually thinking that I should stop share. I'm sorry, guys, I'm learning as I go so that you can see me a little bit better, and then I'll share my screen again. All right. So we're going to start just seated in our chair, and we're going to do something called seated mountain pose. If any of you are familiar with yoga, some of this may feel familiar. This is something that is based out of subtle yoga. It's a type of very mindful, slow movement that I'm also trained in. So we're going to just sit on our seat right now. I invite you to put your feet flat on the floor, kind of sit up tall, hands on your lap or wherever feels comfortable. If it's comfortable to you to close your eyes, I invite you to do that, or to avert your gaze and look down at the floor in front of you. Check in with your breath and go ahead and take a nice big breath in through your nose and sigh it all out through your mouth. Another big breath in through your nose, sigh it all out. And now come back to a slow, even pace of breath. Noticing the rise and fall of your chest, noticing your feet planted flatly on the ground, touching the earth. Noticing that your chair and your body is supported by the earth that can hold all the things that perhaps we can't. Maybe allow anything that's on your mind at this moment, anything that you're thinking of, anything that you don't need or want in this moment for this practice. Maybe just envision it going down out your feet and into the earth. The earth has a really great recycling program, and you can take whatever you don't want at this moment. Remember that you're fully supported by the earth. All right, and when you're ready, you open your eyes, come back to the space, then we're just gonna stand up. We're gonna do more of a traditional standing mountain pose. So with this, you don't need your chair unless you want it. So I'm going to move mine over. And you're going to just stand with your feet about hip width apart. I'm trying to get where you can see me and my head's not cut off, guys. And just open your palms up. And what you'll notice as we're moving through this mindful practice is it really is all about being mindful. And the pause, the things we're doing in between the movement, is maybe more important than the actual movement we're doing, which is unlike a lot of like fitness yoga or things that you may see. So plant your feet firmly in the ground, maybe lift up your toes and put them back down. Maybe turn out your palms, roll your shoulders back and down. Again, if you want, you can close your eyes and just notice. Does anything feel different about being in this tall mountain pose, maybe with the top of our head reaching up for the sky? Maybe either whether you have your eyes closed or open and looking down. Does anything feel different about this than what you were just doing seated? Is your body different? How does it feel? Just notice. Notice and maybe stand tall in that position of being this mountain reaching for the sky. Take just one more minute here, noticing. All right. Now what we're going to do is some standing joint rotations. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start, and this is where you might need your chair or a wall or anything you might need. You can see I don't even have shoes on, guys. I'm real casual with you. But you're going to go ahead and start with maybe your right ankle and just roll your ankle around like this. You don't have to lift it up nearly like I'm doing, but I'm just doing that so you can see me. Do some gentle circles with your ankle, maybe going one direction and then the other. Great. Then maybe put your ball of your foot down and just circle around your hip just very gently, depending on where you are tonight, how much you've been moving today, or maybe how much you haven't. If you had your legs crossed while watching, just take it easy. We'll go to our other foot, and you might hear my snap, crackle, pop. Just do some gentle joint rotations. Our nervous system, like we were talking about earlier, really, really likes repetitive motion and fluidity, and slow joint rotations make it really happy. Again, maybe just put all your foot down, move. So our nervous system, again, likes predictability, fluidity, movement, things like that. So this is just, hopefully the idea is that this would be calming to your nervous system. So now you can put your hands on your hips. So we're just going to do
some gentle kind of rotations with our torso. I like to bend my legs a little bit. And you can kind of make it like a big rotation or kind of small, whatever feels good. You can rotate your hips as if you're hulaing, or you can just go like this. Whatever feels right in your body tonight in the moment is okay. And make sure you go the other way. Okay. Now we'll kind of go up to our wrists. So you can experiment kind of rolling your wrists a little bit like this, or maybe with closed fists. Either way, we're just going to rotate those. Maybe stir our pot. I do this a lot with kids, so I have a lot of imagery, right? Stirring our pot here and stirring it the other way. Now we're just going to move up to our shoulders a little bit. So I'm going to find some stillness and then roll my shoulders up and back. Again, if you be mindful, if you have shoulder injuries or anything like that, just take this easy. You can do it as small as you want and place your hands up on top here, or you can go a little bit bigger and maybe do like a swimming motion. You can have fun with this. Oh, there's the bio. Okay, just checking. So making sure you guys weren't saying what in the world is happening. Okay, now find some stillness with our shoulders, and we will go to our neck. So with our neck, we want to be really, really gentle. And so we're just going to focus on taking our chin down to our chest or somewhere like that. And then we're going to roll our right ear over to our right shoulder. And just pause for a second. Make sure you're checking in with your breath. And then our chin down to our chest again, and then left ear to left shoulder. Note your breath. Chin to chest, right ear to right shoulder. Whatever feels good for you. If you like a little bit faster, that's okay. But I actually encourage you to think, if you're going slower, try to make it even slower and see how that feels. Okay. And head back up to neutral. And I just like to turn my neck both ways after I do that. Wonderful. Okay, so now we're going to do something, just shake all that off a little bit. So you can shake your right hand, shake your left hand, shake a little bit, shake your legs out. You can get into it. Kids love vocalizing, going and shaking it out and all of this. Adults, sometimes we need that as well. So you can find your chair again if you have it, or a wall nearby. And what we're going to do is place, if you have the chair to your left, you want to place some weight in your left leg. If you're over on the right, you can do it that way. I realize that I might be opposite you. So whatever leg's closest to your chair and you want to put your hand on it, place a little bit of weight, and eventually all your weight, if that feels comfortable to you, in your left leg. And then we're going to take our right leg, and we're either going to put our heel just on the top of our foot, or maybe our heel up here on our calf. If you're into yoga and you've done it before and it feels good to you to do something more than this, that's also okay. I'm just going to do a tree pose. You can have your branches out to the side or up, or you can hang right here with me. I'm going to invite you to take a couple of deep breaths with me. We're going to check back in with our breath, breathe in through our nose. Let's do 2 more breaths at your own pace. Focusing on something that you can see to allow you balance, or down on the floor. 1 more breath. All right. And take that leg down and kind of shake it out. Don't worry about moving your chair, but I'm just doing that so you guys can see me, hopefully. And we're going to put all the weight in this leg that's closest to the chair. We're going to take our opposite leg up and either put our heel on the top of our standing foot, or maybe our heel somewhere on our calf. And on this time, I'm going to grow my tree branches up and see how that might feel in my body. Standing up straight, reaching tall for the ceiling, maybe experimenting with a different gaze, looking up and breathing. You're going to take about 3 breaths here at your own pace. Like I mentioned, if anything feels uncomfortable, maybe 1 more breath. You can stop, pause, or come out of anything at any time. All right. And we're going to shake that out a bit. Great. Okay. And so now we're going to do maybe one more gentle stretch. So if you want to go ahead and, oh yeah, you guys can see me. Find a little bit wider than a hip width stance. So maybe just a little bit wider stance, whatever that might look like for you. This is my comfy wide stance. And we're going to place one arm on our chair. And then on an inhale, we're going to just inhale up and gently over. And I realize you can't see my arm, but I'm inhaling up and over. And so we're really trying to get some length in our side body here. And we're going to breathe into our side body to really open up and almost feel like we're getting our lungs like a nice massage in there. So I hope you're breathing, even though I'm not cueing you to breathe, but please breathe through this. And don't take it too much. You can also experiment with your what feels good for your neck. So I sometimes like looking down and I feel a nice stretch this way, or sometimes up. So experiment what looks good for you. And if you're right here, or if you're way over here, all of that is welcome and okay. And now we're going to come back down and go to the other side. Again, a little bit wider stance on an inhale up and over. Experiment with what might feel good for your neck, looking up or down. And back down. Right, you just to come back to that mountain pose that we talked about earlier. Feet firmly planted on the floor, shoulders rolled up and back. And just maybe close your eyes or look down. Notice if this position may feel any different, if your body feels any different than when we started. If there's any tingles, if you feel any stretch in your side body, if your heart rate is up, or maybe your breathing's a little different. If you're feeling more awake or alert, or perhaps more grounded. All is welcome. And remember that you're connected to the earth. Maybe feel your feet on the ground wherever you are. And that the earth is holding us up and supporting us. And when you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. And I will come back and thank you guys so much for sharing that practice with me. I appreciate you. I'm going to share my screen and go back to my slides, and we're going to talk a little bit about what we just did and how hopefully it can be beneficial to you. And I'm going to stay standing up. Okay. Oops. Great. So mindful movement, why would we break up our presentation, and why in the world was I asking you guys to go so slow with this, especially if you're into fitness or maybe fitness-based things? And mindful slow movement greatly benefits our nervous system, like we talked about earlier. And we talked about how if our brain is on high alert, our brain's main job is to keep us alive. And so we need to figure out how to cue our parasympathetic nervous system to slow us down, to calm down, to soothe our brain and body. So how do we do that? Mindful slow movement can be one way, and then all those great things that we have talked about earlier. But mindful slow movement can help with increasing attention, mindfulness, body awareness, improve self-regulation, and overall resilience. So movement, again, like nutrition, there's a lot of things out there that people say about movement, but generally regular physical activity has tremendous impact and tremendous effects on mood and anxiety. And actually, most of the time, the data will show that physical movement actually has greater benefit than anti-anxiety or mood improving medications like an SSRI. Not that I'm advocating for just that, but in addition to other things, it can be extraordinarily helpful. So regular physical activity can absolutely reduce anxiety, improve mood. You want to aim for an average of 21 minutes per day or 150 minutes per week. But at the end of the day,
moving at all is better than not moving. Our bodies were made to move. Our bodies certainly weren't made to do the intense commute times and sitting at a desk like I do. Right now, I wish I could show you guys what my little setup is. I have like my kids' blocks over here. I'm just standing. So sometimes if I'm, talking on the phone or doing other things, I try to stand some instead of just being seated because I may not find the time for my 21 minutes a day or however else. So moving any is better than not moving. Find an activity that includes movement. If you chase your kids around, whatever it is, you dance to music after dinner, take a family walk, anything that you can do that you enjoy, you're going to continue to do. So in my mind, moving your body is better, and certainly the data would show, than not moving. I hate calling it exercise because very few people like exercise and think of it as a chore. So moving your body is helpful, and there's not one right way to move it. There's lots of apps, dancing, things like that. So let's talk a little bit about where you could move and maybe some other things that might be beneficial for you. So nature, which is my happy place, absolutely has some amazing benefits for your mind and body as well. So ideally, you'd want about 17 minutes per day based on the literature, or 2 hours a week out in nature. That can mean whatever is a natural setting for you. Many of us don't live in a rural area. We can't find this a great, forest. I wish I could be out in a forest in a jiffy, but I can't. And so that can mean a city park, walking on a sidewalk where you can view trees, viewing nature from inside a building if you don't have access, whatever it can be. The more out in nature you can be, the better, but also viewing or being close to nature can have benefit for you. So here's a reason why really being outside and being in nature or one of the reasons why it can be really helpful, is because there's this really amazing chemical called phytoncides. And I just like saying that too, because I'm like, phytoncides. Again, I can't get any feedback from you guys, so I might be losing it. But so phytoncides are natural chemicals that trees and plants produce. And basically they are antibacterial and antifungal qualities, and it helps plants fight disease. And so what we have found through tons of literature is that when people breathe in these chemicals, our bodies actually respond by increasing the number and activity of a special type of white blood cell that I'm sure many of you are aware of, which are our natural killer cells, or our NK cells. So plants produce the phytoncides. They help them with antibacterial and antifungal properties. We breathe those in by being out in natural settings, and then that can then help our immune system work better through the natural killer cells. So again, depending on if you have a child and where they are in treatment and exposure to nature, please talk with your physician. But in general, for wellness for adults is kind of where I was going with that. So get outside in an area that is easy enough for you to access, maybe one, if you could, that has a little bit of distance from other people, if possible, like your backyard, a nature trail, etc. So let's talk a little bit about viewing nature. So viewing nature actually has some of the same positive benefits on mood, improving mood and reducing anxiety that being out in nature does. While you can't get the phytoncides that may help with your immune system, you can certainly get some of those more positive benefits on fighting stress. So let's give it a try. Here's another experimental thing for you guys. So I'm going to show you something. So I want you to take note of how you're feeling right now, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10. I don't have a poll for this, but on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being you're feeling, really down, stressed, not so great right now. 10 being, oh, you're feeling amazing. And so just take note of where your number is. And I'm going to have you look at something for about 30 seconds, and then we'll see how you feel. All right, so go ahead and focus on this for about 30 seconds. Just take it all in. All right, and then take note. Did anything change? Do you feel any different while looking at this? Maybe you want to choose your screensaver differently. Maybe you want to just take a visual break some days. These just viewing wonderful, beautiful nature scenes. And maybe this is not your scene, but you prefer a beach. Choose them, set some a slideshow on your iPhone or a TV in a room of your home. It can really be healing and soothing. And many hospitals are bringing in much more nature into their settings, because we know that nature can heal for sure. All right, meditation. And I hope I'm doing okay on time. I have a little bit more for us. So goodness, there's so much stuff out there on meditation, and I'm sure many of you have heard about it. Meditation can be really confusing for many people. So let's talk about some of the benefits. Really, there are so many studies, especially over the past 20 years, about meditation and its benefits on overall health and well-being. So it's very, very well studied. Essentially, meditation can help improve mood, decrease anxiety, improve memory, decrease stress in general, decrease blood pressure, improve immune system function, improve stress tolerance. So many, many things that meditation that has been studied and can improve our overall physical and mental well-being. So what's meditation? And this is a tricky one. So meditation is essentially paying attention to the present moment on purpose with awareness and without judgment. Okay. So there's also something called mindfulness. And I just talked about mindful movement, right? Mindfulness, I think of more as a strategy, and you can use something like mindfulness to meditate. That's pretty simplistic understanding, but I think that helps, kind of take a lot of the mystery around when people are like, oh, I can never meditate, or what is this, or I can't do it. So there's many, many types of meditation. Some is used in or has been used in many religions. Meditation has a lot of evidence-based science backing it, like I mentioned, with all the studies. And there are some very prescribed ways to meditate. And then there are some more fluid, more kind of newer ways to meditate. Oops, 1 second. Sorry, guys. But I also think it's important to talk about, as much as helpful it is to talk about what mindfulness is, I want to talk about what it is not, which is often what people think it is, right? You think it is these people sitting in those like lotus positions, being all calm and quiet and free of thoughts. Meditation is not being free of thoughts, right? Because that's why people think they can't do it. And I'm like, no, our brain is there to keep us alive and think. That's what we do. So it's not about having no thoughts. It's not about clearing your mind completely. And it's not about being in this state of utter calm or enlightenment. And so it's not about controlling thoughts, which I think can be really, really helpful for people because they get really intimidated that they can never do that. I know I was. All right, so let's talk about what mindfulness is. Mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are, what we're doing, and not overly reactive or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. Doesn't that sound really lovely? I'd love to live in a more mindful manner. And in fact, I try that. And sometimes this can be really hard, especially depending on what we're doing. And so how can we practice something like mindfulness? Like I mentioned, meditation, you can use mindfulness to meditate. You can mindfully shower. You can mindfully walk. We can mindfully move like what we just did. Remember how I asked you to pause and notice? We were using another sense called interoception, or what happens on the inside of our body, to notice what's going on. You can mindfully eat. You can be mindful in stillness, and also mindful self-compassion. So I think this is my last experiential thing for us, but I'd really like to try this out because I think this one is so important, especially for parents, really all parents. So I'd like for you to, if you feel comfortable, go ahead and close your eyes. If you don't want to close your eyes, that's also okay. But think of a situation in your life that is difficult. Think about a situation that's causing you stress. Call the situation to mind and see if you can actually feel the stress in your body. Now, please say to yourself, this is a moment of suffering. That is mindfulness, being aware of this, being in the moment, validating. You can say something else like this hurts, or ouch, or this is stress. The next thing I would like for you to say is suffering is a part of life. That is common humanity. that is you saying that other people are feeling what I'm feeling right now. Maybe other people on this call, saying to yourself that I'm not alone. Perhaps others share suffering and stress with me. Perhaps others have similar struggles. Now, if you feel comfortable, put your hands over your heart. Feel the warmth of your hands, the gentle touch of your hands on your chest, or any sort of soothing touch that may feel good to you. And say to yourself, may I be kind to myself. You could also ask yourself, what do I need to hear right now to express my kindness to myself? Is there a phrase that speaks to you in your particular situation, such as, may I give myself the compassion that I need? May I learn to accept myself as I am? May I forgive myself? May I be strong? May I be patient? I invite you to take a nice big breath. When you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes. And thank you for doing that with me, if you chose to do that one. All right. So another strategy for managing stress, another practical tip is journaling. And I will have a resource handout that I'm going to go ahead and make available at some point after the webinar. So some of these things will be on there, and you can check in some of them or check them out as you have time. So journaling, we know, and there's lots of research out there that journaling can be really helpful and therapeutic. Writing is inherently therapeutic. The really nice thing about this is that journaling's free. It can literally be used at any time. Again, many, many benefits, but it can help with stress and anxiety reduction, improve mood. It can help us cope with the symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder or acute stress disorder. And really, journaling can give us some space between our thoughts and our feelings, maybe allow us to see patterns in our behaviors or the way that we're thinking. And it can also help us identify negative thoughts or behaviors and maybe help us get some space or distance between those. There's lots of different types of journaling. There's free journaling, there's gratitude journaling, where you might wake up in the morning and think through and write down things that you're grateful for or thankful for that day. And then there's lots of different journals out there or prompts that you can find online. Like I mentioned, I'll share some of those in the resource handout that will be available to you. So let's talk a little bit about connection. And I knew there was already a question maybe that that came through earlier. Connection, social connection, spiritual connection is really vitally important to our wellness as a human. And so it's really important that we nurture connections with others, whether that's virtual or in person. And so obviously groups like Connections or other things allow you to connect with people who may have similarities or understand or maybe know some of what you're going through. And then also in-person social connection can be really helpful too. There's many benefits to being around others, whether that be virtual or in person. Also, something that can really help to nurture social connections and that can help to improve mood would be doing something to perhaps help the people around you. But I put there in parentheses, only if you have the bandwidth. And oftentimes we do want to help others, but maybe it's best to also take care of ourselves or do something restorative. So that can be another way that you can find personal or meaningful benefit, or maybe improve your mood as well by helping others, depending on where you are in your journey. And then tapping into spiritual well-being. So spirituality is a way that ultimately individuals seek meaning and purpose and connection and value. And we do know that folks who are part of a spiritual group or are connected in some way spiritually to others do have typically more healthy lives and live a bit longer. And so I encourage you to tap into maybe whatever your spiritual well-being is, whatever that might mean to you, as in order to perhaps improve meaning or maybe even have some impact on your emotional or physical health. And then I can't do a presentation as a psychologist without talking about professional support and helping with managing mood, anxiety, stress. Psychotherapy can be amazing. It's certainly tailored to you. You can find psychologists, therapists, and others who can be helpful through insurance lists. If you have an insurer, looking on lists of people who are in network with you, or there's a really great website, Psychology Today. It's not all psychologists, but you can put in your zip code if you have insurance coverage, what type of therapist or helper you might want, and find people in your area, people who offer virtual or whatnot, or after hours appointments if you're very busy. And then medication management, speaking to your medical providers as well about things that may help you depending on where you are in your journey, depending on how you're doing. I wanted to just also put that out there as a resource and as a possible intervention. All right. And I would love to keep in touch. We're going to do some Q&A. I would love to keep in touch with you guys. That is my email and my Instagram. My Instagram is a bit of a mix of offering practical professional types of things, and also me and my friends and family. But I would be happy to keep in touch and answer questions. And like I mentioned earlier, I really appreciate and am honored to be here tonight and I've seen some hands come up, and I don't know how to address that on the webinar. And then I think we have some questions. So Kat, I think we were going to do that. I can stop sharing.
Thank you, Amy. That was so great. Really, really good. And we did have some comments from attendees, and in particular appreciated the meditation moment. So, and actually I did as well. I feel quite relaxed now. So thank you.
Awesome.
Couple of questions, some really great questions, actually. And I don't know if you can actually see them, but one of our attendees has questions about strategies for anticipatory grief and ambiguous grief. And if you can address or talk a little to those types of grief and stress.
Sure. So I think that it's important to note, and while not knowing the participant and exactly how they're asking, I think it's important to note that grief is also, like stress, an inherent part of life. And I think depending on where folks are in their journey, there can be, loss of the idea of what normal would be, loss of a child, loss of, a relationship, all sorts of things. And so I think that mindful self-compassion, that kind of like the very brief meditation exercise that we did, practicing mindful self-compassion, which is a little bit of a form of meditation and also a mindful exercise, can be extraordinarily helpful with that. I would also say that many of the things that I talked about tonight, I don't know that I have, without knowing more about the situation, not to sound super like a clinical psychologist, but I don't know if I have like an exact thing, but I would say mindful self-compassion can be extraordinarily helpful with suffering in general. And so I think anticipatory grief and grief in general, that can be really helpful. And also having some grace with yourself and seeking support in whatever that might look like for you, whether that's professional support or support of a group of people who may know what you're going through, might be helpful.
Another question is can stress cause regular headaches? Is that something that could be a physical manifestation of stress?
Absolutely. Regular headaches, tension headaches, migraine headaches, more than likely the cause is stress. Not all the time. I'm not your medical provider, but I will say that I have many, many people come to me with intractable migraines. And so what I would say about headaches, just in general, practice your stress management, sleep as much as you can, drink so much water. And then the caffeine. So if you have a headache, like right at that moment, caffeine can kind of be helpful, but also pay attention to how you may feel. And if you're getting headaches from maybe using a lot of caffeine to just get through, and then if you're coming off of it, headaches a lot of times can be withdrawal from caffeine, because that's one of the most commonly used substances we have. And I know as moms, like we use caffeine a lot sometimes. So yes, absolutely. Stress can cause pretty much any kind of headache that you could have. So practicing stress reduction, sleeping, hydration, lots and lots of water, and then watching how your body is impacted by caffeine. And if you really are having some sort of withdrawal sometime later, if you're having like a rebound caffeine headache.
Great. One of our attendees is curious about sleep medications and utilizing those in order to obtain sleep.
Yeah.
Began with taking Xanax and Ambien type things and is now taking an antihistamine, diphenhydramine,
Got it.
for sleep, and is curious how safe that is for long-term use.
Sleep medication or the
diphenhydramine.
I'm going to say I don't feel as comfortable speaking to that. I would say speak to your medical provider about that. However, what I will say, since you kind of talked about the sleep meditation at first, on that resource list that I'm going to send out to you guys, there is a link for a sleep meditation. It's like a 20-minute one. Most of the relaxation apps and meditation apps also have sleep relaxations. And again, there's lots of really great free stuff on YouTube. You just might want to check one out earlier before you go all in and you're like, this is not relaxing. I don't like this. But like I mentioned earlier, associating and having a good nighttime routine and setting yourself up for success with sleep can be extraordinarily helpful. So whether you're using a medication for sleep, you also want to make sure that you're also doing all that great, we call it sleep hygiene practices. So you'd want to pair your medication and, the cool room, the relaxation practices, your sleep meditation, all of those things. And maybe you said medication now as I'm going through this and not meditation. Okay. Did you? Sorry about that. Anyway, I'm putting in a plug for sleep meditation because you want to pair. I'm like, okay, I had that on my list and I didn't even get to it. But you want to pair that. So using medications, medications are extraordinarily helpful. Use them. Hopefully those things are somewhat more temporary for you and not long-term, because yes, long-term sleep medications can impact your biological clock. They can, you can become a little bit reliant. However, if you need them to sleep, sleep is important. Use them, right? Like talk to your provider, use them. And at the same time, try to pair some of those great things from like sleep hygiene or other things that we've talked about to try to also help you. So that way you're not just associating sleep with, oh, I take my medicine, then I get drowsy, but oh, I take my medicine, I lay here, I maybe do a meditation, I do some gentle stretches, I have my hot tea, whatever it might be. So that way your brain then associates more than just medication with sleep, perhaps.
Okay.
That'd be my tips.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Question.
I was like, ooh, meditation.
And I think this is probably a lot of people might have this in the back of their minds. Chronic stress and the effect it can have on your mental well-being and your physical well-being. Can you talk a little bit about those, how that chronic stress can actually manifest?
So kind of going back to the beginning, and some people may have had to join later and depending on life circumstances tonight, but I talked a little bit about that, and so it will be in the recording, but just to reiterate a little bit is that chronic stress, so some stress is not bad. Stress is an inherent part of life. Chronic stress is where we really get into the issue and where we can have actual brain changes and actual changes in how our body functions and have really negative and pretty significant impacts. One of those mainly being the area of our brain called the hippocampus, which impacts memory. And so I think that trying things every day, even really baby steps, right? Like, let me take a couple of those big deep breaths while I'm in, the car line to pick up my child. Let me, drink a little bit more water, eat one more vegetable. All of these really small steps add up. What we know about behavior change is that we have to start small and then we can actually stick to them. That's why people don't do stick to their New Year's resolutions, because they're too global and whole arching, and we can't do that. That's not how we work. And especially when you have so many other competing demands. So chronic stress does take a significant toll on your brain and body, but starting small on stress reduction, a lot of the practical things we talked about tonight, even implementing some of those, even the fact that if you did any of what we did tonight together, great, right? Like those were super helpful for you as far as just experiencing something new. And it's really like having a toolbox and finding some things that might work for you. So sometimes a glass of red wine might work, right? You're there, you want to relax some, this is what's happening. Okay. A glass of red wine
can't be your only tool to relax, right? It's going to impair your sleep, whatever. Maybe going on a walk, getting outside, getting fresh air, natural light, dancing, whatever that might be. So I just say start small and try to integrate some things to try to combat chronic stress, because it does have really negative impacts on your mind and body.
My turn for a shameless plug here. You mentioned, toolboxes and having tools, and, momcologies, we're really big on that. That's what we like
Yep.
to do. That's why we do these programs and connections. Dr. Seals also facilitates our program at Levine Children's, and it's called Connections Pediatric Cancer Family Support. And we have that program in several hospitals across the country, and we will share information with all the participants on that program as well. It's another opportunity. And there's additional question, and this is actually a great question to kind of wrap things up on. Oh, I lied. We have 2 more questions we'll take. Let's use this one first. Somebody has tried movement meditation videos and hasn't felt like it's had a lasting effect throughout the day. I think their question is, how long do you think we have to try these to see or feel a difference and know it's working?
Oh, that is I love that question. And it is going to be different for everyone. And I think it's also going to be different from your starting point, right? So if you are in a very difficult stage or spot of life, and you're like, you know what, Headspace says I can meditate for 10 minutes and feel better one time. No, of course not. If Headspace was that good or meditation was that good, everybody would be walking around very zen. But I think that having consistent routines around these practices are going to be more helpful for you. So if you are finding that, let's say you did, a brain dump this morning and, got in a little bit of activity and it's midday and you're very stressed and anxious, maybe just go outside for a couple minutes, right? Go outside and drink a glass of water. Or, if you work in an office building, like sometimes I do, I just walk around the office building and back up to my office. I don't get out much, or walk outside to get to the hospital, whatever that might be, and just see if something like midday, a little brain break, we give those to children now, which I'm so happy about in schools, but just see if you might need a little bit more maybe throughout the day, and see if that might be helpful, or maybe stopping and, getting away from a computer or whatever you're doing and taking some mindful breaths. What I will say is that the longer and the more regularly you can do this, the better it's going to work. But that being said, not everything works for everyone, and maybe just plugging in things throughout.
Okay. So this last question is time with friends is really important. And what is a parent to do when their friends are not being helpful, judgmental, advice, perhaps recommending questionable treatment, that type of thing?
Yeah.
And feeling more and more alone. And this is really such a great transition question, because our next session is going to be on communication. So February 23rd, 6:00, we will be having a webinar with Natalie Naguib at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia this would definitely come up in that session. But do you have any advice that you would offer?
Yeah. So I think, and we have discussed this at many, many times in our connections group. And so I will say that having friend support or social support can be and is very, very helpful to you if it's positive support. So if the friends that you used to have are recommending these questionable things or questioning your judgment as a parent, or, saying these different things, then that's not going to be the social support that's going to be helpful or restorative or help you be well and whole as a parent at this time. Maybe they were great earlier. Sometimes we have friendships in various forms, different stages of our lives, and sometimes those sustain and they carry us throughout. And sometimes they're there for that stage of our lives. They're the college friends or they're this friends. And what I have found with our momcology group, our connections group, is that, they have formed such amazing bonds with one another because some of their friends are still there for them and they can do things. And then the people that they've met in that group are the social connection, whether it's virtual or in person, that actually get and understand and can be present with them and for them in a way like no one else can, that their spouse or their family can't. And so I would say that maybe be mindful of how you're feeling around the social connections that you have right now. And if they are not serving you well, set a boundary and maybe find some other social connections. And if you're here tonight, that's wonderful. What a great community. See if you can parse out something from this community or from the local social worker at your hospital or, a religious community or anything else that might be helpful to you. So I'd say that social connection is only as good as the quality of the social connection. And if it's causing you stress or upset or other things with it, I would say set the boundary, at least for this stage, and find some more positive social connection. And then certainly I'm sure you could reach out to anyone through Momcology too if you're having trouble finding that, and they can help point you in the right direction as well. But that's a great question, and one that you're not alone. It comes up a ton.
Yeah. There's so much available online, and I know that you're going to have some resources. We'll get once we have all those resources together, we will go ahead and get those emailed out to everybody. We'll send you an email with all of those resources that Dr. Steele spoke about, and then also you will be receiving a discount code for our shop. We are offering that to you. It's good for you for taking this moment for self-care tonight and spending time focusing on yourself and learning more about how to better manage your stress. We will also be having, again, as I said, February 23rd is our next session. And we can talk, certainly, there was another question about nutrition. Maybe we can have a little outline that we can include in that resources on the nutrition and some more specifics to what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Again, nutrition will be one of our topics as well. So these are all great questions.
Yeah. I'm just the highlight. I like dabbled, so then you guys can have a lot of great stuff. It's so hard to hit all of that, but once again, I thank you so much for having me, and I really appreciate everyone spending their time tonight. So, and you did a wonderful thing. So be proud of yourself and give yourself some credit that you were showing up in any way that you were able to tonight.
Thank you very much, Amy. Thank you everybody for being here. We appreciate all of you attending. If you have questions about anything tonight, please feel free to email us. events@momcology.org is the best way to reach out. Also, we will be sending you that coupon code and a little survey, and there's going to be a question here at the end. If you did not have a question answered and you still have one, we're happy to follow up with Dr. Steele on that and see if we can get an answer for you. So we appreciate everybody's time and look forward to the next session. Thank you.
Bye.